Introduction. Filters Gallery. Hi guys, today we are studying to explore an absolutely amazing section of the Photoshop software. This section is dedicated to filters, and even if Photoshop consisted only of them, it would already have the right to exist. Of course, we have already talked about them a little, but now we will study them in more detail. Filters allow you to create the most stunning effects. With the help of them, you can imitate the work of classical art, or you can create modern art. You can create blurred pictures and added sharpness. It is impossible to even list all of this. So, let's get down to business as soon as possible. And before we start our work, let's make sure we have the right settings. To do this, we need to go to the Edit menu, select Preferences, Plugins, and here select Show all filter gallery groups and names, so that the filters are shown in the most convenient way. So, put this tick and click OK. And now we are starting our work. All filters are located in the top menu, right here. At the very top we have a filter that was used last. And you can use it again, if there is a need for it. In this case, you can press the keyboard shortcut Alt plus Ctrl plus F. Well, the last one was the unsharp mask. And if I click on it now, the sharpness is added. Before that, it was like this. Let's go back to this menu again and see that there are different groups of filters and individual filters that are so significant that they can replace an entire group. Also here we have a Convert for Smart Filters section. We will also talk about this, but not now. Filters can be applied not only to layers, but also to channel masks, restored shapes and text. Firstly, let's see how filters work on layers. If you apply filters directly to the layer itself, then of course it will work, but most often it turns out a rather uninteresting image. Therefore, most often a copy of the main layer is created, on which a filter is applied, and then masks, various blending modes, and so on are applied. Let's see. So, we have such a sweet picture. I will make a copy of the layer now, and let's try to apply some simple filter. I go into the filter. There was such a style in art when the image was drawn using small dots. It's quite interesting. Here we can slightly adjust the size of these points, which will make up our image. We can zoom it in like this. See how it will all be. Well, let's say something like this is fine. Okay, and the effect is applied. Take a look, we can see the effect. But if we change the blending mode, for example, to soft light, then the image will become much more interesting. This is the simplest example. We can also, for example, apply a mask. We can edit an adjustment layer, for example. Maybe on the contrary, I will reduce its saturation and made it almost black and white. So, let's switch to the mask and take the gradient. And I guess I will do this, so that the central part is more colored and the edges are more black and white. Well, this is at least a little more interesting than what we got by simply applying a filter. Therefore, of course, a copy of the layer was useful to us, because we used it to change the layer blending mode. Let's look at another example, and this time we will use a different filter. Go to Filter, Styles, Edges, and look, we got something like that. But in general, it's not too interesting. And now let's try to do it differently. And cancel. Creating a copy. Desaturate. Shift plus Ctrl plus U. I used the same filter to make our edges black and white. That is, I'm now striving to create something similar to a drawing. Find edges. Here we have a picture like this. Now I'm applying a mask. I take a linear gradient and draw it in this way. I like this option when I have a photo on the left and a head-on picture on the right. These are very simple examples. I'm just trying to show you that the filter itself, as a rule, doesn't create anything special, and it is always used with some additional means. Well, here we could edit an adjustment layer, for example, curves, and for example do this to make the image more saturated. Well, this is already to your taste. I hope you have understood the basic idea of combining the filter with other features of the software. And let's move on to the big section called the Filter Gallery. Go to the Filter menu, select the Filter Gallery. There is such an additional window. On the left, we have an image, the scale of which we can adjust, so that it is convenient for us. Now I immediately have the filter that I last used in this group, but we'll now look at others. As you can see, there are several groups of filters, which you can choose, and then adjust them on the right. Here you can sort through the various options. You can choose oil paint, for example. If you edit and change some parameters here, then the image changes accordingly. You can create various interesting things. You can choose, for example, a smudge stick, a dry brush, and so on. But let's try to do something more concrete with this image. I want to use the colored pencil filter, but first I need to make a copy of the layer. So I will close this window and make a copy of the layer, and we go back to the filter gallery. So we set the appropriate scale, open the artistic group, choose colored pencil. That's what I get. By the way, the result of using this filter largely depends on what colors you have installed. I have now set the white and black colors, and here you can adjust the parameters at your discretion. As you like, you can change all these settings. You can choose the ones that seem most suitable to you. I reduce the paper brightness. I think it's better when it's white. I settled on these settings for this photo. Let's leave them like this. Our picture has already become more interesting. But we'll not stop there. Multiple filters can be applied to one image at once. And if I click on this new layer of effects, then I can apply some other filter here. This is how a stained glass looks like. Well, for example, here you can see how it will look. This is grain. Although you may like, for example, this one. I have now zoomed in on the image, so that you can better see exactly what this texture looks like. It is quite interesting, and this is how a texturizer looks like. We choose this one, and I press OK. Now I will unlock the background layer. I will swap these layers, and now I would like to make it a little more expressive. Therefore, I will merge the layers using the keyboard shortcut and apply Unsharp Mask. We already know this filter. We have already talked about it. So look what an interesting thing I have now. Here, of course, you can adjust the parameters at your discretion, so that you like your result. Well, I will probably stop at this option. It is almost an artistic work. Let's see what we had in the beginning. I opened the history palette, and if we look at the very beginning, we had such a quite ordinary photo. And here is what we got after simple manipulations with filters. It looks especially interesting when we zoom in. Now we have applied the filter to the entire image at once. But it happens that the filter looks beautiful on one part of the image, but not so beautiful on the other part of the image. That is, different filter settings are required for different parts of the images. And let's see how we can work with it. Let's move on to the next example. I'm going to take an image of this girl here, and we'll try to make a drawing out of it. I have already created 2 copies of the layer. You'll now understand why this is necessary. We'll go into the filter, filter gallery, select the sketch section. So we still have colored pencil here for now, and that's what we see. Let's try to work with the settings, but as the light and dark balance is added, the pattern begins to appear. At the same time, we can see some parts of the drawing well, for example here, and some parts we don't see at all. I continue to edit light and dark balance, and I get to such a point when I don't want to darken our hair and eyes any further. But the lips and the chin are still not visible, and here I stop and click OK. Then I close this layer. I move to the layer below. I go into the filter, and on top of my filter gallery there will be just the same filter that we used before. And I will click on it, and I will have the same filter applied. But it's applied with the same settings that I had before, which doesn't quite suit me. So I cancel and go to the filter gallery again. Later we will find out how the settings can be adjusted more flexibly, but for now I will not talk about this in order not to overload you too much. So I choose the filter gallery not from the top, but in the filter list itself. That's our girl. You can also reduce and increase the size with the help of the wheel. Well, now I will work with light and dark balance until my lips and chin are clearly visible. We won't pay attention to the hair, and you'll have to increase the balance quite a lot. But we are doing this, of course, gradually. But I think this value is enough. It seems to me that the lips are already quite clearly visible, and the chin line appeared too. And then I agree and click OK. And now I turn on the icon of our top layer, added a mask to it. I take a brush. Moreover, I take a hard brush like this. If the brush is soft, then you may have some artifacts that are not quite desirable. Therefore, we take a hard brush. And then I will take a white brush and remove all unnecessary elements. Well, I will take a black brush again. That's how we can do it. You can also go directly to the layer itself. Here we have chosen a mask. So now you have to refine your image, make it the best version of itself. And of course, if you own a tablet, then you can draw some lines with the tablet. But the main idea of this exercise is that you can create an unlimited number of layers for each part of the image and set your own settings. And then you can combine all these parts into a single whole with a mask. I also want to draw attention to the fact that the larger the image in size, the higher its quality, the better the filters will work. And specifically for this style, which we use now, it is best to use contrasting images with a lot of details and a larger size, because unfortunately nothing interesting will happen if you use small blurry faded photos. Unfortunately, we will not be able to consider literally all the filters that are available in Photoshop, because it can take an incredible amount of time. Moreover, there are a huge variety of ways to use each filter. But I want to show you another filter from the filter gallery, simply because it is beautiful. This filter is designed to create a glow. It creates such a romantic effect on the photo, and the color of this glow is determined by the background color that you have selected. Pay attention to this, because if there is some other color chosen, then the effect will be different. Well, let's use this filter. Filter, Filter Gallery, Distort. Select Diffuse Glow. We are reducing the size of our image. Look how we have added light to the photo. It has acquired a completely new mood. It has a romantic vibe now. And of course, we can adjust the level of this glow using sliders. Make it smaller or make it bigger. You can adjust all this. Choose the effect that you like best. I don't really like adding graininess to this effect. Well, you never know. Maybe someone will like it. That's a beautiful effect, which can help you to decorate your images. And if suddenly it is too much, you can reduce the opacity and make this effect more acceptable to you. And of course, you can combine some other features that you already know. Let's move on to the homework. The first homework task will be to use the filter. By the way, it can be quite interesting. For example, you can also choose a mosaic. Try a mosaic filter and then add the sharpness to it. And also change the blending mode on the copy of the layer. That is, the first task is to experiment with these two filters. They can look quite interesting in this image. The second task is to create a transition from a photo to a pencil drawing. By the way, the pencil drawing on layer 1 here could still be adjusted with the levels, and it could look rather interesting. Then we added this still life. After that we proceed to create such a graphic image. And task number 5 is to create such a diffuse glow. In the next lesson, we'll continue studying filters. I hope that this long lesson was interesting for you. It was Peter Romanov and AIM School. See you next time.